Have you been there before, Rabbi?
This place, I've been in Lake New Jersey, but I don't think I was at this wedding hall. They
Got
say
it.
it's a very nice wedding
It's
hall.
booming. It's booming. It's booming.
Yeah. They say it's a very pretty wedding hall. But I did not see it before
I have a lot of family that lives in Lakewood.
So maybe your wife
I
can,
haven't seen them in like.
they're waiting to see you.
Yeah, sure.
No, what kind of holy cousin that they have that goes to a shir every day. If they would know about you, Morris, maybe your family would know about the. Okay. He's in Avelut, but still for the year, so he's not going to be coming. Sure, 100%. How's he doing? Sure, yes. Okay, 100%. What's the name?
Rabbi Tzvi Nachman. Tzvi Nachman ben Rabbi Avraham.
Tzvi Nachman ben what's his mother's name?
Saada.
Sada. Tzvi Nachman ben Sada. Have a four shalema. Everything should go good. He should be well. He has to dance. He has to dance at his son's wedding. He has to be well. Okay, we're on Membeis Amen Aleph, 42A. You sent to the group that we're on, Morris? If you could send to the group. Yeah, ready to roll. Okay. 42A, Membeis Amen Aleph. Rabbi Yehuda, it's 4 lines from the top. Everyone have it? Rabbi Yehuda, have a osik lebrei bei Rabbi Yehuda bar Chaviva. 4 lines from the top on Membeis Amen Aleph. Okay, Rabbi Yehuda was involved, or the way they translated that his son married a child from Rav Yehuda bar Chaviva. So they made a shidduch. They made a match between the son of Rav Yehuda. Rav Yehuda havi osek lebrei. He made a wedding for his family, Rabbi Yehuda's family, with the family of Rabbi Yehuda bar Chaviva. So there's 2 Rabbi Yehudas. There's Rabbi Yehuda, there's Rabbi Yehuda bar Chaviva. Good morning, Joseph. We are Membeis Amen Aleph, 42A, 4 lines, 5 lines from the top.
Okay.
And they point out, interesting, that the father of the Chatan and the father of the Kala, both their names were Yehuda. Now there was a righteous, very saintly person by the name of Rabbi Yehuda HaChassid. And Rabbi Yehuda HaChassid, he wrote a tzavah. He wrote something to his family. He wrote certain things to his family. A tzavah is like a tzav, it's like the commandment, like a will. Or the last, when a person leaves this world, a lot of times a person gives certain instructions to the family, just like Moshe Rabbeinu, before he passed away, he gave instructions to the Jewish community, and Yeshua is going to take over, and like by Yaakov calls the family together. Whenever Shmuel, he calls the family together. Morning. We find Yaakov, we find Moshe giving instructions to the people about what Yitzchak. I don't know if we see it. Maybe he did it, but the pasuk might not talk about it much. But might not talk about it. So Rabbi Yehuda HaChassid, he gave certain instructions to his family. And the question is were these instructions just for his family, or was it also for other members of the Jewish community, or the Jewish community at large? And one of the things he said was that when you make a shidduch, you should not make a shidduch that 2 people that have the same names their children should not marry each other. Okay? That means if the father of the bride, the father of the groom have the same name, that was one of the things that he said that should not, you have to know what the reason for it. Obviously, there's reason why he felt it shouldn't be done. Similarly, he was the one that said that a father-in-law and a son-in-law, if they have the same name, they shouldn't be a match. So, I mean, and some explain that if there's any difference in the name, Rav Moshe Feinstein, his name was Rav Moshe, and his son, he had two son-in-laws. One's name was Moshe David Tendler, and one son-in-law was Eliyahu Moshe. So we had son-in-laws with the name Moshe, and his name was Moshe, but they weren't exact, but his name was only Moshe, and their name was Eliyahu Moshe. Well, their name was Moshe David. So it wasn't exactly the same name. Now, even if it would be the same name, say that again? Her father, her husband's name was Moshe David, and her father's name was Moshe. Yes, and David was right. Correct. So now, so someone to show from our Gemara. See, many say there are those that say that Rabbi Yehuda HaChassid's instructions were specific instructions for his family. These were stringencies that he said. I think he was the one that maybe says maybe not to take a haircut on Rosh Chodesh. Maybe he was behind that also. There were certain things that he said, Rabbi Yehuda HaChassid. Some learned it was only for his family. He was saying certain instructions for his family, not for the Jewish community, not for everybody, just for his family. And because you see from this Gemara that you had two people, the father of the groom and the father of the bride, they both had the name Yehuda, and they made a shidduch. So therefore, we see that they weren't concerned for the fact that the father of the bride's name was Yehuda and the father of the groom's name was Yehuda. So so that's just a point. So some explain no de Yehuda asked on the instruction of Yehuda HaChassid from many places in Shas. We find a lot of the things, a lot of the restrictions that he said that family that they shouldn't do. We find many places in the Gemara that says that these things were allowed, and he writes that this instruction was only written for the descendants of Rabbi Yehuda HaChassid, his children, his grandchildren, his great-grandchildren. If you come from this family, if you're a descendant of Yehuda HaChassid, this is what the great-grandfather is instructing, the great holy rabbi is instructing his family, but not for the whole world. And then Yehuda says that's regarding the whole instructions that Rabbi Yehuda HaChassid gave. That's how he says it's only for his family and not for the whole world. Okay, just wanted to point that out. The Gemara continues, but there are people that actually understand that the instruction of Yehuda HaChassid is for it's for the whole world. But then they have to explain this. Hold on 1 second. Good morning. Welcome back. Okay. So the Gemara continues. So what happened with this? So they made the shidduch, Mazel Tov. They made a shidduch, right? Aisu lekamayu pas habo b'kisonim, and they brought in front of them these rabbis. They brought pas habo b'kisnin, and we explained kas habo b'kisnin is let's say you have cake, apple pie, or things that bread that's filled with some sweets, some things a cake or like cakes or something like that. And so there was a shidduch, and then there were guests that came, and when the guests came, they brought an honor. You for guests sometimes you bring something a little sweet, right? You brought some sort of cake or some sort of pie. He also shaminu when Rabbi Yehuda came, he heard the kamavachi hamotzi that the people were making a hamotzi. They were making a hamotzi on this type of pata bava kisnin, that this type of bread that had the filling with filled with other ingredients. Amalahu. So Rabbi Yehuda said, "Matzitzi the kashamana." What are this? I am hearing a motzi. I hear tzi in your bracha. It's like he's saying matzitzi the kashamana. Hamotzi. I'm hearing hamotzi in your bracha. He says, Dilma hamotzi lechem en haaretz kamavarchitu. Is what I'm hearing the tzi? You're saying the bracha hamotzi? In. Yes, we're making a hamotzi on this type of apple pie. We're making hamotzi. So he said to them, and they said in. The Tanya, we learned in the Braita, Rav Mona Amar Mishum Rabbi Yehuda. Rav Mona says in the name of Rabbi Yehuda, in Rebbe Yehuda. Remember, the fathers here are Rav Yehuda and Rav Yehuda, without the Yud. Without the Yud is generally an Amora, a later rabbi. With the Yud, Rebbe means they have smicha. That usually, it's not always that would be a Tana. We have Rabbi Yochanan who's an Amora. But many times when you see the Rebbe with the Yud at the end, that's a sign of Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Meir, Rabbi Akiva. Those are Tanoim. Those are the people like the Mishnaic period, from the Mishnah period. And then the period later is Amoraim. They don't have the Yud at the end. So like Rav Huna, Rav Ashi. It's not Rebbe Huna. It's not Rebbe Ashi. So now the Gemara says, and that's why we did it. The Ramuna says that you say hamotzi on this bread. If it's dough, the fact that you made the dough with some apples in the dough. Still, you would have to still go and you fill the dough with apples. You still have to go in and say hamotzi. That's the opinion of Ramuna. That's not the halakha. We don't make a hamotzi on apple pie, right? Apple pie, we make mezonot. So he says, they report to him that pata bo b'kisin you say hamotzi. V'oma Shmuel halach Ramuna, and Shmuel says the law follows Ramuna that you say hamotzi on this bread that's filled, that the pockets are filled with other things, with fruits or these type of things. Amalhu. So Rabbi Yehuda told them that's not so. It's not so. Ein halacha kramuna itma. You have the wrong recording of what Shmuel said. Shmuel said the law does not follow Ramona. Rather, the law follows that you do not say hamotzi on a type of apple pie, a type of foods that a dough that has within it, it's made with this type of something that's inside of it. You will not make hamotzi on such a thing. So Armulei, they said to Rabbi Yehuda, "V'hamar the Amar mishmei Shmuel." You said in the name of Shmuel. You yourself said in the name of Shmuel. Lachmoniyot. Lachmoniyot is a baked item, which is similar to, it was similar to this pata bobakisnin that was baked. It has some sort of filling of other ingredients in the middle, and yet you said ma'arvin behem. You could go ahead and use it for an Eruv Chatzerot. What's an Eruv Chatzerot? Let's say you have in the old days, you had a few houses, and let's say you had people, let's say on this block, you had a few houses, and in front of the houses, they had a courtyard. And the courtyard was shared by these houses. Just like you have, let's say you have like a development, right? You have buildings, and then in front of the buildings, they have in there, they have like a fountain. It's not open to the public. You know, it's not like out in the street, in the fountains of the street, but within the development, you have like we have in the Lower East Side, there's the 504 buildings, okay? These buildings, it's like 6 to 8 buildings. And in the courtyard of the building opens up, not to the street, it opens up, all these buildings opens up to this front of the building. We have this fountain and this area. And then from there, you go out into the street. So that area, and now, and there's even a gate from the street that separates, you know, presumably because of security purposes, after 100 years, they finally put up a gate to close off that from the street. You can't just go from the street into this area. But this is a more private area. But this area is designated for the rights and the use of the members of the buildings. That's their courtyard, right? They open the courtyard. Similarly, the lobbies of your building. You're in a building, and the lobbies of your building, the hallways of the building are really used for the purposes of the members of the building, right? Now, the fact that the lobbies of your building or this courtyard, good morning, Sammy, the fact that it is used by many members of the buildings, and it's used as in a communal sense, it's open for which public? The public that lives in these buildings. So it has some similarity to a public domain. And if you're going to carry from your private house into the courtyard, which technically is also a private area, it belongs to the buildings. It's not open, it's not a public area for the street, but the rabbis who are here to protect us, they were concerned that if you would go ahead and carry from your house, which is a totally private area, to the courtyard, and people used to do a lot of things in the courtyard. They would wash their clothing in the courtyard, other things they would do in the courtyard. There's a concern that if you carry from your house to the courtyard, you might come to carry from your house to a public domain. You might say, if I could carry from my house to my courtyard, which my courtyard looks like it's not only my area, the courtyard is used by many people, so people will make a mistake, and they'll think that I could come to carry from a private domain to a real public domain. They'll come to make a mistake that they'll carry from their house to the Reshut HaRabim, which on Shabbat, if you carry from your house to the public domain, it's one of the 39 malachot on Shabbat that is forbidden, right? It's a very serious, it's a violation of Shabbat. It's equal to making a fire on Shabbat. It's equal to planting on Shabbat. It's equal to cutting something off the tree if you carry from your private domain to a public domain. The neighborhoods that have an eruv that you can carry in the neighborhood, in the street, those are only places that the public domain in the street does not meet the requirements of a public domain on a Torah level. And even carrying in the street in those neighborhoods, even without an eruv, if it only met a rabbinic prohibition, those are the places where they're able to make an eruv. Have a great day, Sammy. So what did the rabbis do? The rabbis instituted something called eruv chatzerot, right? So let me see. They instituted eruv chatzerot. So this was instituted by Shlomo HaMelech. King Shlomo instituted that if there are people living in the houses, different people living in the houses, you cannot carry from the house to the courtyard or the courtyard to the house until the neighbors unite and they become like one. And how do they do that? They go ahead and they put bread into one of the houses from that one of the houses of the people that live in this court, who share this courtyard, and this bread is for all the neighbors, and they do not, and they only use bread or matzah. I think it's what we commonly use, so matzah doesn't get stale. And usually they do this every maybe they do it every Erev Pesach. They do it because they're going to use matzah, because you don't want to use bread because you'll have a problem. Pesach, you got to get rid of the bread. And anyways, how long could bread last? Bread can't last so long, and you'd have to renew your Erev almost every year, because it's very often. So therefore, there's a process how they do the bread. They have this bread, and it's used, and they make this Erev Chatzerot. So it says you're allowed to use these lachmaniyot. Thank you. These lachmaniyot. Good morning, Shmuel Rafe. These lachmaniyot you could use to make the eruv. Meaning it's counted as bread to make the eruv. By the way, there are laws regarding there's different laws regarding eruv chatzerot. Different things. The difference is whether if Gentiles live in those buildings. What do you do? Or only Jews. It's much easier if it's only Jews. If there's Gentiles, it becomes more complicated. And so the Gemara says, on the Orvin Behem, you could use these breads, and you can make these breads can be used as the bread that's used for the Eruv Chatzerot, for this Eruv. And Umavolchan Alehen Hamotzi. You could go ahead and you could, and it says you make a motzi. So you see that that pata bobikisnin, this dough that was filled with other ingredients, let's say an apple pie. So we see from this Gemara, the Gemara is trying to say that you make a hamotzi an apple pie. We know we say have mezonot an apple pie, but he's asking. We see that you have, if it's dough, the fact that you filled the dough with other items inside, you still have to go ahead and make, let's say, for instance, a knish, a potato knish, right? What bracha do we make if you bake the potato knish, right? Or let's say let's say a potato knish. What bracha you make on a potato knish? We make a mezonot on a potato knish, right? What is a potato knish made from? Dough and potatoes, and you fill it in the middle with potatoes, right? It's not the regular bread, but the Gemara is asking, we see that lachmaniyot, we see you make hamotzi, and you told me you say a mezonot or such a thing, you say hamotzi. So he says, shiny hatam, there it's different. You know why? The kava sudate alayhu. He made a meal out of these knishes, out of these apple pies. Let's say he made a meal out of these knishes. He ate so many knishes to make a meal, so therefore that's why it has a status of bread. And therefore, excuse me, that's why, good morning, Mike. That's why they were able to use this as for the Eruv Chatzerot. Morning, because there was enough, they put enough of these lachmaniyot that there was enough that this was a size that people would have a meal, right? If we said yesterday, one of the opinions is when would you make hamotzi on if you have dough and the dough was filled with some sort of filling, whether it's potatoes in the dough, potato knish, or other things, or even, for instance, that's where you're going to get into the svardim and egg challah, right? What's the law for svardim on egg challah, right? What do you make on egg challah? I'm saying the svardim, they want to have water challah, because water challah is hamotzi, but the egg challah, a lot of them will make a mezonot on egg challah, correct? There are a lot of svardim that are particular that for Shabbat they get water challah, right? They don't want to get the egg challah. But if you're making a meal, but if you have enough of the egg challah, that's an amount that people will have that the people have a meal over, or Rabbi Vadia said, we said yesterday, let's say the amount of 4 eggs, which we said is like around close to 230 grams, right? It should be around close to 8 ounces. That we said would be hamotzi, right? Not everyone's eating 8 ounces not every Sephardi is eating 8 ounces of challah. But that would be an amount that a person would seem that they should have to say hamotzi if they would eat that amount of challah, if it was egg challah. So that's what the Gemara says. So I would say that they put enough of these lachmaniyot, they use for the eruv enough that would you would say hamotzi on, because you're eating an amount that people will have a meal over, and therefore, but if you do not have a meal over them, if you don't make a meal over these lachmaniyot, if you don't make a meal out of these dough that has this filling inside, you do not say hamotzi. What's the bracha you would say? You would say amizonot. Okay? For the Ashkenazim, it's like pizza. For Ashkenazim, if it's only 1 slice of pizza, it's a mizonot. If you have 2 slices of pizza, then it's a hamotzi. Right? For the Ashkenazim will classify pizza as bread that has that's filled with cheese, and we'll look at it as a mizonot. But if we have 2 slices of pizza, then that's, for us, we consider that the amount that people have a meal over. It's no longer a snack, and then we will wash, and we will say until Edayim, and we'll say hamotzi. Okay. 2 slices of pizza, you would say hamotzi. Tilas Edayim and hamotzi. But Sfardim do say hamotzi even not less than 2 slices of pizza. Sfardim they hold even less. Rav Papa, I think they consider it like bread. Rav Papa yiklal lebei Rav Huna b'rei Rav Nasan. Rav Papa came to the house of Rav Huna, the son of Rav Natan. Okay, and but the garmis of the tayu, after they finished the meal, they brought in something else, like the meal was over, the main course was over, and it seems like the meal is over. Then they brought in another dish. Shakul Rapapa. Rapapa took the dish, and he went ahead and he ate from the dish. So here is Rapapa. He's a guest in, let's say, Ariel's house. He comes to Ariel's house. Here it happens to be Rav Huna b'rei Rav Nasa's house. Ariel gave a meal, and after they finished the main course was finished. So you would think the meal is over pretty much, and then he brings out another food he brings out. And his guest, Rav Papa, does not make a bracha on that other food. He eats it without saying a bracha. So Amrulay, the people that were there at the table, said to Rav Papa, Lo savalama, don't you hold gama or sol melecho? If you go ahead and you finished, the meal is over. Now, if you're going to go ahead and you want to eat again, you would have to make a new bracha. The meal was over. Because didn't you say that in your mind the meal is over, and therefore you already had in mind that the meal is over, so therefore the bracha that you made earlier, the hamotzi that you said earlier, is over, because just like if a person goes ahead and you wash netilat yadayim mayim achronim, right? So when you wash mayim achronim, that means it's a sign that the meal. That means it's over. Your mind is that you're no more eating anymore for this meal, and then you go ahead and then you decide, no, I changed my mind. I want to eat something. Now you have to make a new bracha. because once you wash the mayim achonim, that means you clearly indicated that the meal is over, and therefore you. Okay, very good. So it didn't say that he did mayim achonim. So we're going to have to see. The Gemara is going to talk about this. So the Gemara, they're thinking that the fact that the meal was over, that the actual normal way that people would eat at that point, the meal was over, that the main course was finished, and then they brought out something after the main course. So the people asking him the question thought that shouldn't it be that you lost your focus that you wanted to continue to eat, and therefore by the fact that your mind was settled that you're not eating anymore, should that now require you to go ahead and make a new bracha on anything else that you plan on eating? Amalahu. He says to them, Salak itma. It doesn't say that you finished your meal. It says if they removed the table, see, in the bread, they used to go ahead, salakit ma, they used to go ahead and remove the table in the old days before Birkat HaMazon. And Tosfos asked a question that seems to be contradictory to our custom that we do not want to, remember we spoke about, we don't take the bread away before we say Birkat HaMazon. You're supposed to leave bread on the table. And it seems like in those days, they actually removed the table before the Birkat HaMazon. So if you remove the table, so there's no bread left. Why do we need to have such a custom today to make sure there's bread on the table when you say Birkat HaMazon, if we see that they would actually remove the table, that means there's no bread on the table. So Tosfos says perhaps in those days, they would remove the table from there's the person who's leading the zimun. Then there's the rest of the members of the household. There's the head of the household, or the guest that's going to be leading the zimun. We do say you should give the guest the honor to lead the zimun. So he gives a special bracha to the balabayit. So in those days, and today anyways, even if you're not the one leading the zimun, everybody gives a bracha to the balabayit. Everyone gives a bracha. You should know when you're eating at someone else's table, right? Even in shul, we say Yiratzon Shlo Yevosh Balabayit Lo Mazev Likol Malmabot. Right? We give a bracha. Some Ashkenazim have like a very short version. They say Harachamon Yivorech Es Balabayit Hazev Et Baal Tabayis Hazev. But really, the Gemara says it's a longer version, like you guys say, or here in the Sardim say, Shlo Yevosh Balabayit Lo Mazev. So what do we say? The language is, you shouldn't have any avera. It's lechasim kov ayishlo sata masayada vayizakol funish funin shum dvayir chait vayir avov vayatav erolam. That's the bracha, part of the bracha that you say for the host of the meal. When you go to someone's house, make sure you say the special bracha for the host. So Tosfos says perhaps they would leave the table in front of the person who would lead in the Birkat HaMazon. So therefore, there was always bread, even if there's bread not in front of all the members who are there. They removed the tables from 95% of the people, but the fact that they left the table of bread in front of the person who led the zimun, they used to have, everyone had their own private table. You ever see in a hospital? You ever see in a hospital, they have that, that little thing that they wheel in? That was like everybody had that little type of table. So that little table, they left for the person who led the zimun, they left that table for him. So therefore he had bread. But today Tosfos says we don't eat like that anymore. It's already going back 900 years. They don't have those little tables anymore. They have the big table like we have. And Tosfos says it's not appropriate to remove the table till after the Birkat HaMazon. That's when you can remove the table. And really, that's why you should be careful to have bread on your table. See, even if you clean up the table, before Birkat HaMazon, then it's like taking away the tables. There's nothing left on the table. So therefore, and we said there's supposed to be bread on the table. So therefore, people should be careful to make sure to put bread back on the table by the time you say the Birkat HaMazon, or just always leave the bread on the table. Make sure there's bread on the table when you say the Birkat HaMazon. We saw in the Yalkut Yosef the idea that if you go ahead and you clean off the table, and then you go ahead and have dessert afterwards, and there's no more bread, so then we saw there's a question that maybe the Birkat HaMazon might not even cover the Borei Pri Eitz that you said. Meaning not only would you need to say a Borei Pri Eitz on the fruit, he says, but if you totally remove, there's no more bread, there's nothing like, then maybe you would have to say bracha achrona on the fruit, independent of the Birkat HaMazon, because the bread is gone, and it's so.
Rabbi,
Yes.
I have a question, but the simple translation of ברכת המזון זה ואכלת ושבעת וברכת את השם, את אלוקים. So now we're getting into the technical, if we need to clean the table, or we don't need to clean the table before. What's the difference if I ate and I'm not hungry anymore? Now it's time for the blessing. What does it matter if I left bread on the table or I didn't leave bread on the table, or if I cleaned it before? Maybe it's more nice to have, instead of a messy table after a dinner of 10 people, to have a...
Right. It's nice to have it. It's nice to have a clean table, but you should still have the bread on the table. Now, what's the purpose of having the bread on the table? So the bread on the table serves multiple purposes. Number one, you're showing the great blessing that you have still, that you were left, that the food was left over. That when you're saying your Birkat HaMazon, look, you have left over. That's one idea that you're showing. That's one point. And the other point is that by leaving bread on the table, you're showing that your meal was still technically in session, or is in session until the Birkat HaMazon. So by leaving bread on the table, so therefore, if it's in session, so therefore it would help. It would help therefore it would help that when you have the fruit as dessert, you technically, it's fruit. You're having fruit at dessert. You'll still say a bracha, a Borei Pri Eitz on the fruit, because it's not really food that's coming as meal food. But since it's coming during the meal because there's bread on the table, so therefore the Birkat HaMazon would cover the fruit. So it's a new idea. Most people never heard of such a concept. That we are concerned, if you want to protect and ensure that the Birkat HaMazon could cover the fruit that you ate. The Birkat HaMazon covers food that's eaten during the meal, because that's what Birkat HaMazon is because of the Hamotzi. It's about the meal food that you eat, the chicken, the potatoes, the bread, the Birkat. So if you ate it, so too, if you had dessert. If dessert was eaten during the time period of the meal, so even though you'll say a Borei Pri Eitz on the dessert, but the Birkat HaMazon will cover it because it was eaten during the meal time. So as long as there's bread, it shows you did not lose focus of the meal. The bread's symbolic, the meal is still going. So therefore, that's just another point. What would seem to me, why to keep the bread around? So it serves it's a multi-purpose. One, when you say the Birkat HaMazon, you want the Birkat HaMazon to be show the blessing that you have left over. And number two is that you want to keep the meal, so to speak, that the meal is still going up to the end. That's by having the bread on the table. Like you said, I don't think there's a problem cleaning as long as you leave some bread on the table. That's what I would say. I think we're going to be we're manufacturing a special bread basket, right? Who's going to be manufacturing and selling it on eBay, on whatever, Amazon? this bread basket to leave on the table throughout the nice thing to leave on the table. I don't see somebody, I used to see bread baskets years ago. I don't see them around so much. We got to bring them back on the market. Okay. So the Gemara says, so he said, Silak Itma. So he says, the only time I would have to say a new bracha is if they remove the table. And that means the meal is totally over. But he says, but they didn't, we just finished the meal. And since we just finished the meal, but they didn't remove the table, so therefore, this is his opinion, that's not considered the end. It's not over. The fact that we stopped eating, the main course is over, the table is still there, the meal is still technically on. The meal is technically not over yet. Rava, and therefore I could go ahead and if they bring me out something else at that time, I could go ahead and eat it without saying a new bracha, because the meal is still not over. So therefore I'm still covered by the hamotzi that was said earlier. Rava Rav Zera, ikala lebei Reish Galuta. Rava Rav Zera, he came to the house of Reish Galuta. Reish Galuta was the head of the Galut, the leading figure. A lot of times it was a religious, political figure. Sometimes he might not have been the greatest scholar, but he was a leader. He was leading the leader of the community, and sometimes he was a great scholar. And Rashi says in Berachos that these people were from the descendants of David HaMelech. They would appoint someone who came from David HaMelech, and they would be the head of the Galut, the head of the exile in Bavel, in Babylon. Today, it's like having the head leader in America, or in the United States, or the world leader outside of Israel. After they removed the table, the table from in front of them. They sent another portion of meat after they removed the table. That's how Rashi says. Rashi learns there was some sort of meat. Tosfos says some other, however Tosfos translates something else. We'll go meanwhile Rashi's pshat. So they sent another portion of meat after they removed the table, and they sent a shadrula or stina mebei Reish Galuta, from the house of Reish Galuta. So the way they explain over here, it was from the same kitchen that served the first, that served the meal. That same place, they brought another portion of food after the table was already gone. And the way if they would have sent this portion from a different place, and they never, then it would seem that definitely would not be part of the meal. But this was from the same kitchen. The kitchen brought out another food. So Rava ate this food, and he didn't. And Rav Zera lo achil. Rav Zera did not eat the food. Why? Because Rav Zera did not eat it because they had removed the table. Since they had removed the table, so he said, "I'm not eating. I'm going to say Birkat HaMazon first. It's like it's time to say Birkat HaMazon." The other rabbi who came, he ate without any problem, no hesitation. Amalei. So Rav Zera says to Rava, "Why are you eating? If they remove the table, why are you eating without saying a bracha? First, you should say Birkat HaMazon, or you should say a bracha, and then say Birkat HaMazon. Lo sova lo ma, asur melechol. Don't you hold you're not allowed to eat? Meaning you would have to make a new. You could explain the Gemara. You would need to make a new bracha. Once they go ahead and they remove the table, so then it's over. The meal is over. So how can you go ahead and go? Now they brought out another food. So your mind was, I'm not eating anymore because they removed the table. Now they removed it. Now they bring in another food. You should have to make a new bracha on the food. Even though you wash and you had a motzi before, but once you no more eating, then you should have to make a new bracha. And your mindset was the meal is over. They took away the table. Amalei, Sarova says, I agree in general. When you take away the table, the meal is over. And if I want to continue eating afterwards, I have to say new bracha. But I am a guest in somebody's house. And when you're a guest in somebody's house, then you never lose mindset. Your mind is always whatever they're going to bring out. You never know what they're going to bring out. And therefore, it's never over until it's not over until maybe they all do, till it's over, or you do the Mayim Achronim, they all do Mayim Achronim. Everybody does a Mayim Achronim. But until it's over, like Ariel says, to take away the table, you're still thinking whatever your mind is whatever. And not, it's like if you go to somebody's house and they bring you a cup of water and you say Yashakol, then after they bring a cup of water, they bring you candy. So Yashakol is for everything that they're going to bring you. You know, you're a guest in their house. You know they're going to bring you. You don't know what they're bringing you. Your mind is whatever they're going to bring you. You're saying your bracha. So anan atakad derish gluta samchinan. We are relying on the table of the Reish Galuta, and therefore we never lose focus of eating from the meal. Our mindset is whatever he was set. The host brings out something. I'll eat whatever the host will bring out. I am not removing myself from eating. That's my mindset. If I'm someone else's house, I am a certain amount dependent on whatever he is going to bring out. So in that halacha, in the Shulchan Aruch, you see there's a letter, looks like a letter Hey. So letter Hey takes you to the Ein Mishpat Ner Mitzvah, which takes you to Shulchan Aruch Hasim Kuf Ayin Tes, Sif Beis. So what does it say in Kuf Ayin Tes, Sif Beis? It says the following. Listen to this. Morona Mechaber in the Shulchan Aruch. He says, Mi shesomech al shulchan acherim. If you're relying on someone else's table, it's not your own table. Your own table, you're in charge. It's your table. You call the shots. But if you're in someone else's house, even if you said, if you say, let's say Birkat HaMazon, let's say you're in someone else's house, you say, you know what, maybe we could bench now. But if the Balabayit did not say let's bench, so your mindset, if the host says no, we have something else to bring out. You ready to leave? You ready? You want to go? I want to go. I have to get going. So you're saying, you think it's over. I'm saying I want to leave. I gotta go. The host says, you know what? We have something else. We have something else to bring out. So therefore, you are dependent on the host. So therefore, you're still considered part of the meal. Now the Chafetz Chaim writes, God bless you. He says, because your mindset is that if the host wants you to eat and drink with him, you're going to eat and drink with him. But if when you said, you know what, I would like to say Birkat HaMazon, and if you have that in mind, and you had in mind that even if the host wants to eat and drink anything more, I am not going to eat and drink with him. And then I changed my mind and I decided to eat and drink with him. Then I would have to say a new bracha. And he said, according to some opinions, some say that's only if I want to drink, and some say even if I want to eat, I would also have to make a new bracha. So therefore, sometimes it depends on your mindset, how strongly you had in mind. We say, let's say Birkat HaMazon. You as a guest said it to the host. Could we say Birkat HaMazon? And if your mindset was that even if he's going to bring out something, I'm not going to eat or drink. So then you're getting into the area of maybe if you would decide that you would want and you change your mind, then maybe you would have to say, some say for drinking, you would have to, if you change your mind, you would have to say a bracha, and some say even for eating. Now, the Chafetz Chaim says But let's say if the host says, let's say Birkat Hamazon, but you said but you would like to still eat a little bit more. You're the guest, and you still want to like to eat a little bit more, drink a little more. You're allowed to go ahead and eat and drink more, even though the host said, let's say Birkat Hamazon, because even though the host said, let's say Birkat Hamazon, but you never removed your mindset from eating, because you had a mind to eat. So that's what so again, bottom line is, you're a guest at someone's house. Even if your mindset is as long as he brings out food, whatever he brings out, when you say a bracha, your mindset is to continue eating until it's over. Like area over means when, let's say, we'll see more washing my machlonim, or we'll see what's called over. But the host says, let's say Birkat Hamazon. If you still want to eat, you can still eat. It's not over for you because you didn't accept what he said yet. You asked, could I just have another drink before we say Birkat Hamazon? Therefore, it's not over. You can still take that drink without a new bracha. Have a great day, everybody. Good to see everybody. Continue tomorrow. Looking forward.
Thank you.
Rabbi.
Have a great day.
Have a great day.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye, everybody. Joseph.
Bye-bye.